Welcome to the Besties with Breasties podcast. Sarah Hall here. I am a certified health and wellness coach, athletic trainer, mom, and breast cancer survivor. I help women overcome their own mind drama to make mind shifts that open up the possibility for their most empowered and energetic life.
And I am Beth Wilmes, author, speaker, and founder of a human investment organization, otherwise known as a nonprofit, called Faith Through Fire. Our mission is to reduce the fear and anxiety that breast cancer patients feel and replace it with hope and a path toward thriving.
This podcast is about our experiences with breast cancer
and life after as young survivors and moms. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, let's see. It's 10:35, 10:40. So I guess that's morning. Good morning.
Yeah, I consider this still morning.
Yeah, this is still morning. So we were talking before we got on here. Jess is, first of all, my co-host today, which I'm really excited. You've been on the podcast before as a guest, but
yes.
I wrangled you in as co-host today.
Yes.
But we were talking offline because your first profession is teaching and you are officially out for the summer.
That's right. School's out for summer.
And it feels good.
Feels good.
It feels good. She still had to send kids off today, but so she has the house to herself.
Yes.
How does that feel?
Quiet, peaceful, calm.
Does your husband, he doesn't work in the house, right?
No, he is also a teacher.
Okay.
And he does work over the summer, but this week he took off just so that
Oh, so you guys going to do
have a
anything
little calm
fun
before the storm.
like the rest of the day? No?
Maybe. We'll see.
You can do whatever you want.
We're just playing it by ear.
Look at you, flying by the seat of your pants.
That's right. That's what we do.
Oh my gosh. Well, I wanted you to co-host with me today because this episode is about personal responsibility after cancer. And you were the first person that popped into my head because I know very few people that hold themselves more accountable than you. And I want to know, like, have you always been that way or is that new?
No, I think I've always been this way. And then I think having breast cancer and going through everything, it kind of elevated it even more.
Interesting.
I don't really know like where it came from, but I think it was just always from a sense of wanting to do the best that I can and wanting to be the best person I can. And so it was like everything I do, I try to do as well as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it just comes from that. And I think a lot of that probably comes from playing sports as a kid.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you were a big athlete.
Correct.
Yeah. What did you play?
Mainly soccer.
Mainly soccer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you just learned what from that experience?
Well, I think being a part of a team, and I just always I was always striving for more. I always wanted to be the best I could be. I was always practicing. I was always working hard. And I just wanted to be the best that I could. And I wanted to not let my team down. And so I think it comes from like that, being able to set goals and then like reflect on them comes from playing sports, playing soccer.
Clearly, you don't suffer from ADD.
No, I do not.
Because I'm listening to that and I'm like, that sounds really hard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, today we're going to be talking about personal responsibility, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and how to hold it kind of with compassion. So first, we're going to talk about honoring trauma without making it a refuge.
Then we'll acknowledge the limits of control because not all outcomes are preventable.
Yep. And finally, we'll encourage agency in areas where control is possible, like habits, mindset, connection. But before we jump into that, let's hear from our first sponsor. Are you feeling scared, overwhelmed, or lost post-treatment? Do you want to reclaim your life and thrive even better than before breast cancer? Faith Through Fire Survivorship Bootcamp is designed for breast cancer survivors who are committed to living their fullest lives. If you're ready to leap forward, seize personal growth, and redefine your journey, this bootcamp will provide the path. You might benefit from our bootcamp if the excitement of completing treatment has worn off, leaving you feeling unsure about your future. You feel confused by your new post-cancer identity and struggle to accept your quote, new normal. You want to enjoy life again but feel stuck in a cycle of negative emotions. Or you feel disconnected from yourself, others, or God. Our bootcamp offers a structured roadmap that delves deep into 4 key areas crucial for post-cancer recovery and thriving: understanding trauma, cultivating a fighting spirit, managing anxiety and intrusive thoughts, and redefining and reshaping your identity so you can rediscover your joy and purpose in life. You can participate in person in St. Louis or online. To join our waitlist, visit faiththroughfire.org/survivorship-bootcamp. And we're back. So first, I feel like we need to validate the emotional and physical toll of cancer. When we talk about validation, I think it's really important to honor the trauma without making it a refuge. So I sometimes see people get stuck in what's happened to them, and it really limits their ability to move forward with purpose and intentionality. It doesn't sound like that was an issue for you. When you got breast cancer, was there a moment where you just felt kind of paralyzed, or did you pretty quickly mobilize into, I'm going to make the best of this and do the best I can with this situation?
For me, it was very quick. Within the first 24 hours of being diagnosed, I knew that I could not control everything that was going on. And so I just quickly shifted into what can I control. And for me, that was my nutrition, what I was putting in my body, my movement, my exercise, and then my mindset, what books I was reading, what podcasts I was listening to, the people that I was surrounding myself with, positive energy versus negative energy. So being able to make that shift quickly, I think I didn't get stuck in, I can't control this. Mm-hmm. I don't really know what's going on.
So did you feel like your previous experience with like sports and just your discipline in general, like really helped you in that situation?
I haven't really thought about it that way. Maybe. I think that for me, it was like kind of having positive people in my life that like just spoke to me like, this is something you can't control. And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to get stuck in like being a victim, or are you going to stand up and come out of it?
Interesting. I have to think that your prior experience with like overcoming adversity and just like seeing a challenge and then rising to the occasion had to have helped you in that, because I feel like a lot of people, I mean, myself included, I didn't get to the point of wanting to be a better version of myself until years down the road. You gravitated toward that like really quickly.
Well, I do think, as you were just speaking, I do think playing sports and being injured really does kind of teach you how to handle adversity. When I was playing soccer, I tore both of my ACLs 2 different times, which was a pretty major surgery, and having to work through the recovery and be dedicated and committed and consistent with the rehabilitation and getting back to running and then getting back to soccer skills just so that you could be a part of the team. I think that kind of trained me for that moment. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, it totally does.
Because so many times I think you don't really know what you're capable of until you like are challenged. Mm-hmm. And then when you're challenged, then you get to see like the true side of yourself. And hopefully it's the good side. A lot of people fall to victimhood and blaming others and accusing the situation. But if you're able to kind of hold yourself accountable, like this wasn't my fault, this was an accident, like in talking about an injury or even breast cancer, it's like you can't control that. Mm-hmm. But once you can then take yourself out of it and hold yourself accountable to it, that is when you can start coming up with solutions to the problem.
Yeah, I love that. You said rehabilitation, which I think is so relevant to breast cancer because people want to immediately go back to their old version of themselves pre-injury, so to speak, right? Like mm-hmm. I want to do everything out of the gate the way I did prior to cancer. And I think, especially for somebody like yourself who has a very high standard for their, what level they want to be at, how did you reconcile that? Because I'm assuming that when you went through everything, that you couldn't just bounce back and do everything the way that you had before, or could you?
No, it was a very long, hard journey.
And was that mentally taxing? I imagine it would be.
I mean, actually, like going through breast cancer treatments, that part was easier because you're kind of in like fight mode. And it was very easy to think about and focus on what I could control. But actually coming out of the treatment and then looking around and realizing like what in the world just happened, like it was like being involved in like a huge storm and you're like looking at all of the different pieces of yourself, trying to figure out, okay, now how do I rebuild? Where do I go from here? Like, what do I need to focus on? It can be very overwhelming. And it's just very hard. And it was very emotional and much longer. It took way longer than I thought it would to come out of it.
Yeah, I feel like people, we live in this instant gratification society where it's like we want it now. And I think a lot of people get discouraged because they are struggling and it's not a quick turnaround, and again, that probably goes back to your training where you realize that rehabilitation doesn't happen overnight. You have a catastrophic injury, you're going to have to really work toward, feeling better physically and emotionally.
Right.
But I'm one of those people where I really do think you can come out the other side stronger. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. I do think that you have to want to, because if you don't want to, you could just continue life the way that you were, or even it could have a negative impact on your life and you could just not hold yourself accountable and still blame others and the situation that you're put in.
Yeah, I feel like if somebody has that mindset, they don't last very long with Faith Through Fire, because I feel like the one thing that we all have in common is our desire to move past it and to use it for good and to be a stronger version of ourselves. And if you kind of adopt that mindset of like, this is horrible and I can't get past it and I'll never be the same, it's okay to feel like that at moments. But if you start living there, it's just like, it goes back to what you said, like-minded people gravitate toward people who think and make them feel the way they want to feel, right? So you're just not going to, you're not going to make it with a group of self-sufficient, ambitious.
Right. Well, and it's like that one quote, you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I feel like all of the women through Faith Through Fire are kind of very similar, and everybody makes each other kind of better and builds each other up and wants to do better. And so if you're not, if you're the people that you surround yourself aren't like that, then you're not going to be better also. You're going to be the sum of those 5 people that you're the closest to.
Agree. So did you have to make changes in your environment when you got diagnosed? Like, I feel like I was fortunate in that I had very positive people surrounding me during everything. So I didn't have to make major changes, but so many people do in order to keep their mind in the right space. Like, what are your thoughts around that?
I definitely did. Honestly, it was the first time in my life that I set up boundaries. And there were people that kind of were always negative that I knew right away I'm not going to be around them. And so it was the first time I think that I actually was looking out for myself. I've always been a people pleaser and trying to please other people and do what they wanted me to do. And it was the first time that I looked around and said, okay, I need to focus on myself. If I want to get better and if I want to get through this, I have to be aware of who I'm around. And I work in a school, so there's lots of people with negativity and, well, that makes it sound terrible, which is not what I mean, but just different people. And if people were being negative, I walked out of the room. I mean, I didn't say anything. I wasn't
you weren't adversarial. You were just
right. I just was like, okay, this
yourself.
Conversation is not serving me, so I'm just going to leave. And I would just leave quietly. And I was very particular about the people that I hung around with. And the books that I read, everything was inspirational, motivational. I didn't want any negativity because I just felt like that would go into my body and then it would make my body have to work harder.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think you and I feel a lot the same about a lot of that stuff. I want to kind of acknowledge, though, the limits of our control, because I talk to a lot of people about, their frustration with, I did everything quote unquote right and I still got cancer. And that's something that they really struggle with. And, obviously we know cancer is multifactorial. There's genetics, there's stress, there's environmental exposures, there's immune responses, there's hormones going on. And so it can feel really unfair or just like frustrating for people because they want to have this sense of control over the situation. But you said it at the very beginning. It's like there are things that are in your control and there are things outside of your control. And it's a slippery slope because you don't want to become so obsessed with controlling the situation, right, that you become consumed with it. And at the same time, you don't want to fold into that victim mentality of there's nothing I can do here to improve my quality of life, because that's not true either. There really is like a very fine balance. So when you got diagnosed, like, were you in that spot of how did this happen? Like, I feel like I'm a healthy person, or were you just like, nope, it's 1 in 8, it happens?
No, I definitely at first was shocked, surprised. I mean, I kind of felt like I would go through like the stages of grief, like anger, denial, like how is this possible? Sadness. But I think that when we do focus on those circles of like the small circle of the things that we can actually control and then the big circle, that's when we have power. Because if we're wasting all of our time on things that we can't control. And I knew my brother right away was like, Jessica, you cannot control what's actually going on inside of your body. And he even said that with like the scans and the tests. He was like, just be calm when you go in there because you can't control it. And then you'll figure out what the problem is and then you'll know what you can do about it. And so it kind of broke it down a little bit so that it wasn't this like big overwhelming. I mean, it was, but when you take a step back and you're like, okay, I actually have no control over what's going on in my body, then it is actually freeing because I have
There's
no
nothing to control.
There's no worry there because I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Worrying about it doesn't change anything.
Right. I mean, that's hard to do. Very hard.
To not worry, yeah.
Right. But when you can think about it that way, it helped me in my head to kind of frame it in a way of, well, I actually have no idea what is going on, but I do want to know what is going on so that I can come up with a plan.
Yeah, the control piece is really hard for people to wrap their arms around. But if you can kind of hold that loosely, I also think you can't really trust your brain when it's traumatized. You know, like you're so emotional. Everything is so heightened. You're so scared. You're so uncertain. You don't know how this happened. And that's a mystery that most women are so frustrated by.
Right.
Like they want to know, what was it? Did I come into, contact with something that caused this? Did I, was it my birth control pills that I took for so many years? Is it because I drank when I was younger? Like, they want to find the one thing that caused this. And the fact that they can't solve that mystery is like really infuriating for a lot of them.
Right.
But it's like when your brain is like really upset and traumatized and emotional, you can't trust that feeling.
Right.
Like you have to try to your point, compartmentalize, okay, what can I control versus what I can't control? And is this serving me by just spiraling out about this? But like you said, easier said than done.
Right.
But it like helped me to know, like, you can't trust your emotions right now. You're not thinking with a clear head. Somebody who's not in this situation would look at this totally different than the way you're looking at it right now. So just, one step at a time, which is why they tell you that. But it's hard.
It really is hard.
Yeah.
It really is.
Did you deal with any guilt or shame or anything around your diagnosis? Like I felt really guilty for putting my family through it.
Yes. I did not want to be the person that like people needed to help, but that was another part of the journey for me was being more vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I have always been the type of person. It's like, I don't need help. Like I got this. Don't worry about me. But when it came to getting breast cancer and then knowing what was kind of coming ahead with the treatments, I knew that I had to be vulnerable and I knew I had to ask for help. And what I found was not only did people want to help me and that made them feel better, but then they actually did help me also. So it was kind of people want to help, they want to be there. But if you just shut everybody out, which sometimes is my first reaction, my first tendency is to shut people out and just like draw
isolate.
Inward.
Mm-hmm, me too.
And it was very liberating to be able to let that go and let people come in and like see the true
like who
situation.
You are as a person and just I agree.
Yeah.
I think I had this sense of self-reliance from a child. Like I at some point when I was growing up felt like I could only count on myself, and so it was like that follows you into adulthood, and It's like then you become this person that just doesn't need anybody and I can figure this out, I can fix this on my own. But it really does limit you emotionally. It keeps you disengaged in life. You don't have meaningful relationships because you don't feel like you can really tell anybody how you're feeling or suffering. So if you can let that piece of it go, I mean, for me, I feel like that piece of my journey was the most healing, was just letting myself be my authentic self and not feeling like I had to wear this protective barrier all the time was huge. So we're going to talk a little bit more about stopping this shame cycle and kind of taking accountability and what that looks like. But before we do that, you want to do Boobs in the News?
Of course.
All right. Boobs in the News is a fun segment where we read funny tweets by real people or ridiculous news stories.
Boobs in the News, boobs in the news, boobs in the news.
Okay. You ready for this? This was given to me by a friend, and I thought it was funny. So, public notice, if you believe you were sold bad drugs, we are offering a free service to test them for you. Would you fall for that?
But I know.
No.
But
right.
that just is, it's just funny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this poor guy, I say poor guy, he's a criminal, but he's 49 years old. He found himself in a situation where he thought somebody had sold him the wrong drug. And so he contacted the sheriff's office to say he purchased meth about a week earlier and had a bad reaction. And he was not happy about it. He's like, I want you guys to figure out who sold me the bad drugs and go after him. And so detectives said in an effort to ensure the quality of the drug that he purchased, he said if he'll come into the sheriff's office, they could test the drugs that he purchased. So he drove to the sheriff's office, handed detectives a clear crystal-like substance wrapped in aluminum foil, and it tested positive for meth. And then he was promptly arrested and charged with possession of meth. $5,000 bond. So I don't even know what to say about this, except for that clearly this poor man has smoked too much meth, and it has.
He wasn't thinking clearly.
He was not thinking clearly, and clearly does not understand the role that police play in our communities. Can you imagine?
No, I mean that worked though for the sheriff's office.
I mean, he probably spent a night in jail and then went back on the streets. But I digress. I will say my husband and I were talking about it because this past weekend, of course, by the time this airs, it'll be way later. But it was like Memorial Weekend. And so, cops are out. And I'm just like, what a hard job. Can you imagine the people that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis? I can't even imagine it. If there's one career that I would be terrible in, it would be that one.
Well, and even like just the other day, there was a police chase all the way down the highway. They have to put spike strips up. I mean,
around us?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Right on Highway 70 by Highway K, yeah.
What was he fleeing from?
I don't know. I didn't read the whole story because I was like, these people.
I know. I
don't have time for that.
I don't. They just, this morning on the news, they were talking about like 11 guys broke out of a New Orleans prison and they all scattered and they were all murderers. I mean, these were like hardcore criminals and they're all over the place and they've reapprehended like 10 out of the 12 or something like that. So there's only 2 people left that are on the lam. But I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, like what is happening? What is wrong with these people?
How did they get out? That's the question.
It was a whole elaborate thing, but there was a network of women inside the prison that they basically helped them escape. Gotcha. So I've seen stories like that before where the men woo the women in the prison and basically get them to help them, like super manipulative. Now those women are idiots.
Right.
But, manipulate them into helping them escape. And then it's like, what do you think the end game is here? You're going to jail now too.
Right. I know. People just don't think clearly, I don't think.
I don't. I think that's fair to say. If
Maybe they're on meth. Like
if you're doing meth, you're not thinking the right way. Well, there's your boobs.
Bibs in the news. Bibs in the news. Bibs in the news.
So we're back. So obviously, you and I think it's important to take responsibility, but you don't want to fall into toxic self-blame or magical thinking. Like there's one fix that's going to like keep you, quote unquote safe.
Right.
Because those are dangerous too. You can't go too far in one direction.
Right.
So first of all, like what is it that gives you peace with factors beyond your control?
Well, I think that, this is something that was hard to come to terms with. I feel like it's still like your mind just wanders. But I think it's when you think about the things that you can control and you can influence for the better or for the worse in your body, sleep, exercise, nutrition, being calm and embracing like a more peaceful life. I think that when you look around and you just try to do your best with the cards that you've been dealt, and not like zero in on one specific thing because we don't know.
What good does that do?
So it's just trying to put the pieces together of, okay, what can I do? And, everything also can be very expensive. So it's like you have to really, when you're thinking of like more holistic options as you're coming out of treatment and how you're going to live your life. So it's just kind of like trying to make the best decision with the information that you have.
Yeah, and the resources that you have. Right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's not about sitting in the past of what could have been or what I should have done. It's what do I choose now? Right. And it's also about empowered choices. So eating anti-inflammatory foods out of self-love, not fear.
Right.
You're not doing it because you're scared that if you have chocolate or a beer on the weekend that something's going to happen. Like that's not healthy. But if you eat anti-inflammatory foods because I love myself, I want to honor my body, that feels a lot different.
Right.
Same thing with moving your body as empowerment, not punishment.
Right.
You're not going to the gym because you have to, because you need 150 minutes of moderate intensity workout. It's like, no, I'm going because it makes me feel good mentally and physically.
Right.
And I get to. Right. Same things about, you talked about setting boundaries to feel safe. You're not doing it to cure yourself. You're doing it to feel safe in your body and to have the right mental state so that you can live your best life. And I think, when you're living in the present all the time of how can I show up today and feel good in my mind and my body, that changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that you have to want it. And that's the thing. It's like you have to make a decision. And I tell almost every survivor that there is always going to be a moment in your journey where you have to, like, the rubber hits the road and you have to make that decision. Like, do I want to get better or do I want to get bitter?
Right.
And then you go one direction or the other. And we've seen people take the bitter road, and it's really, really sad because, to your point, it doesn't change anything. Like now you're just upset and bitter. You know what I mean? Instead of peaceful and enjoying every moment. It's like, what? I don't understand that choice, but people do it.
I think I remember even personally having the thought like, oh, this isn't going to really like change my life.
Mm-hmm.
But really how naive of me, because it's I feel like when I was going through treatment, I was like, oh, once I make it to this point, then it's like the chapter's closed and I can like just move on with life. But that is so silly because it affects your whole life. And really, if you allow it to, it helps you to blossom into a beautiful flower.
Right.
That of a person that you weren't and that you can strive to become.
Yeah. Or like for me, it felt like coming home to who I really was. It was like that person was always there, but she was buried under a lot of like, self-protection and, pride and just emotional, deadness that I have cultivated over the years. And it's like unearthing her again felt really freeing and just like, oh, this is the person I was meant to be or the person I was before I allowed all that to derail me. So yeah, you can, that's the thing about personal growth is that it can happen at any stage of your life. And so breast cancer, I feel like, is a really great catalyst for that.
Right.
Before we kind of close out with our final words, let's hear from our second sponsor.
Thrivent is a proud sponsor of Faith Through Fire. Thrivent believes money is a tool and not a goal. The Gateway Financial Group with Thrivent is local to the St. Louis area and can work with you to create a financial strategy that reflects your priorities and helps you protect the things that matter to you, like family and giving back. Please call 314-783-4214 to schedule a free consultation with one of Thrivent's Gateway Financial Advisors.
All right, so we're back. So my final words is like, we got to hold space for both truths. You didn't cause this, but you still get to choose what happens next, right?
Right.
What about you? What do you want to leave people with when it comes to personal responsibility and the journey that we're on?
Well, I think it also comes down to this level of responsibility for ourselves. I remember a period of time where I had finished treatment and I was kind of figuring out how to heal and how to move on and how to process all of the emotions. But then life also still is happening. And sometimes life, it just kind of feels like it keeps beating you up. And it's like one thing after another. And it can be easy to fall into that like victim mentality. Even like for me personally, like I was so diligent with my mindset going through treatment. And then it was like after a period of time had passed, you still have to be diligent with those thoughts because it's so easy for like the negativity to like pop in. Mm-hmm. But really it comes down to, I kept finding myself wanting like somebody to come and like save me. Mm-hmm. No, but nobody's coming. Like right. My life is 100% my responsibility. Nobody's coming to save me. So if I want to be happy, I have to make the happiness. If I want to have joy, I have to make the joy, and I have to do the things every single day that I know work for me to help me to have that happiness and to have that joy in life, no matter what it's throwing at me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And nobody's going to care about your personal happiness or your peace more than you.
Right.
That's at the end of the day.
Right.
So if you're struggling with that, you can ask for help. Ask people to help you, surround yourself with positive people who can encourage you, get a therapist on board that can help get you there faster. But I thought you made an interesting point, which is like, I know what worked for me. Mm-hmm. And so I think people have to really do a deep dive into what does healing and self-care and accountability look like on my end,
Yep, 100%.
It's going to look really specific, like I'm the same way. When I feel triggered or upset or stressed out, my tendency is to isolate and distance myself from the people who care about me the most. So I have to actively work against that to make sure that I'm the best version of myself. And so you really do need to just look at it on a one-on, like for you personally, what are the things you struggle with? What are the things that you want to overcome? And then take a page from your sports playbook and make a plan and get there, right?
That's right. And really, I think it comes down to like those daily choices of what are you going to do about it? Are you going to wake up and are you going to be happy? Or are you going to be sad and upset? And are you going to be grateful, or are you going to just blame other people? And it really comes down to like those mental mindset and positive affirmations that you tell yourself every single day to kind of keep your head in the right spot.
Yeah, 100%. All right, there you are, guys. Until next time.
See ya.
Thank you for being a listener of the Besties with Breasties podcast. If this podcast had a positive impact on your journey, leave us a review or consider becoming a supporter. You can donate with the link in the show notes or at faiththroughfire.org. This episode was hosted by Sarah Hall and Beth Wilmes, audio and production edits by Innovative Frequencies.